Welcome students. This session is for BA second year English Literature paper 2nd. In this paper you have essays, stories and fiction. In this session we will be doing essay on Superstitions by A.G. Gardiner. Alfred George Gardiner was born on 2nd June 1865 and he died on 3rd March 1946. He was an English journalist, editor and author. Let's have a look at his life and works. Born in 1865, Gardiner left school at the minimum age and decided to become a journalist. So his first passion was to be a journalist. He was quite successful and rose to become the editor of the Daily News, a powerful newspaper owned by the Cadbury family. He held this position for 15 years. However, by the end of this time, he fell into a feud with Lord George. The Cadbury family, who owned the paper, decided to support Lord George instead of Gardiner. As a result, Gardiner found himself without a job. So he lost his job as an editor after 15 years serving in this Cadbury family's newspaper, that is the Daily News. This led to a new, gentler and quieter phase. So after losing his job, there was a change in his life, and a very gentle and quiet phase began in his life. He started writing essays under the name of Alpha of the Plough. He gained immense popularity as an essayist, perhaps almost as much as he had gained as an editor. So he was famous both ways, as an editor of the newspaper as well as an essayist. His major works include Pillars of Society, that was in 1913, The Warlords, 1915, and Pebbles on the Shore, 1916, Leaves in the Wind, 1920, Many Furrows, 1924, etc. After a long and successful career as an essayist, Gardiner died in the year 1946. So this was his life, and he was famous as an editor, he was famous as an essayist, and these are the famous works. Let's have a look at the style of this famous essayist. A.G. Gardiner is one of the finest essayists of modern times. Though written in a journalistic vein, yet his essays sparkle wit and wisdom. So because he had an experience as an editor, so his essays also show his journalistic vein, and as we read it, we see a sparkle of wit and wisdom in his essays. His prose style is marked with perfect clarity of expression. His style resembles the manner of most natural and intimate conversationalist. So it appears as if he's talking to his readers in a very natural and intimate style. His sentences are usually short and his figures homely. So he doesn't use elaborate sentences to prove his point. Rather, his sentences are short and quite homely. They are quite natural to the readers. They are absolutely comfortable with whatever he writes. They are free from any sort of show of pedantry and learning. So there is no show-off of his learning in his essays. He writes in a very simple and natural style. Each essay consists of well-written and connected sentences which have well-arranged stages of development. So as we are going to experience this essay of A.G. Gardiner on Superstitions, we'll see that how the sentences are connected and the way this essay develops. Gardiner's essay often contain thought-provoking ideas. So it makes readers to really think the ideas that he shares with the readers. His ideas are made palatable by a coating of fine humor. So there is a touch of humor also in his ideas. He has a happy choice of words and a wealth of literary and historical allusions. So as we are going to go through his essay on superstitions, we'll come to know that Gardiner had a wealth of literary and historical allusions that places. He does give us hints from literature and from his knowledge of history. Before I start with the text of this essay, let me introduce what this essay is about or what it deals with. On Superstitions by A.J. Gardiner has a theme of fear, control, superstition, logic, tradition, insecurity, and escape. So whenever a person talks about superstition, all these things naturally come, that there is a fear in people, and superstition also has a tradition, and it is all because of insecurity in people's mind, and they want to have an escape from their fear and insecurity with the help of superstition. Man has a fear of the unknown, and to elevate this fear, he creates superstition which may or may not calm his mind. The reason why superstitions are there in society is all because man has a fear of unknown, and he wants to just remove this fear with the help of superstition. That may help him or they may not help him, but still people use superstitions to elevate their fears. In reality, it's an individual's unwillingness to challenge their fear that gives rise to the continuation of superstitions in modern times. Basically, people don't want to challenge their fear. They just want to get rid of it. They just want to calm their mind from it. That's why superstitions are still prevalent in modern times. Also, on many occasions, people do not know why they are superstitious. Gardiner says in his essay that all of us, all the people are superstitious to less or more extent, and people even don't know why they are superstitious. Tradition plays a large part in superstitions, and it is by word of mouth that superstitions are prevalent in society today. And tradition also has a role to play in superstitions because it has been carried down from generations, and they are not written anywhere, rather they are by the word of mouth, and they are prevalent everywhere in society. Nobody has a reasonable explanation for most superstitions apart from the fact that by not adhering to a superstition, an individual gets uncomfortable. So why people are following superstitions, nobody knows. But only thing that is clear to them is that if they don't follow superstition, they become uncomfortable, and just to make themselves calm and at peace, people follow superstitions without knowing why they are following it. Rather than deal with the discomfort of fear, an individual decides instead to pay observance to the superstition. So superstition is an easy way out. Instead of dealing with discomfort of fear, people prefer to observe superstitions. Gardiner may be suggesting that an individual, due to the advancements in science, has no reason to be superstitious. So Gardiner at place does talk about the scientific developments, and he says that people were superstitious in the older times. It was quite fine with them because they did not have answer to so many problems and so many natural happenings. But due to advancements in science, a lot of things have come in the knowledge of people. There is no reason to be superstitious. Now let's start with the text of this essay in Superstitions. It was inevitable that the fact that a murder has taken place at a house with a number 13 in the street, the letters of whose name number 13 would not pass unnoticed. Now if a murder has taken place in a house number 13 in a street, people are surely going to notice this number 13 because it is considered as unlucky by many people. If you look the last 100 murders that have been committed, I suppose, we should find that as many have taken place at number 6 or number 7 or any other number you choose as at number 13. And the law of averages is as inexorable here as elsewhere. So the writer says that if you just look at the history of murders, the last 100 murders, and take out an average, you will find that murders have taken place in other houses also with other numbers, 6, 7 or any other number. But when it comes to number 13, people don't let it pass unnoticingly. Rather, they notice this number because they think that number 13 is unlucky. And this is a superstition in the minds of people. But this consideration does not prevent the world remarking on the fact when number 13 has its turn. So whenever number 13 has its turn, it may be anywhere, wherever this number is written, this world always notices it, and this fact that number 13 is unlucky does not pass unnoticed. Not that the world believes there is anything in the superstition. Basically, on the surface, world does not appear as superstitious, and they don't think that there is any superstition involved in number 13. It is quite sure it is a mere childish folly, of course, and sometimes people consider it as foolishness to regard number 13 as unlucky number. Few of us would refuse to take a house because its number was 13, or decline an invitation to dinner because there were to be 13 at a table. But most of us would be just a shade happier if that desirable residence were numbered 11, and not any less pleased with the dinner if one of the guests contracted a chill that kept him away. So again, with a touch of humor, this writer, Gardiner, explains that we are not superstitious to that level that we refuse to take a house just because its number is 13, or we refuse a dinner invitation just because there will be 13 guests at a table. But he says that somewhere inside each one of us, there is a superstition present that if a house number is 11, we'll be just a shade happier, we'll be more happy than if it's number 13, or if the guests on the table are not 13 in number, rather one of them contracts a chill and he's not able to attend a dinner, and the number somewhere does not end up at 13, we will be not say that we want that to happen, but we'll be much happy if the number 13 is not there. We would not confess this little weakness to each other, but this is something which is inside us, and we never confess this weakness to others or to our friends or to anyone whom we talk to. We might even refuse to admit it to ourselves, but it is there. He says even we don't admit to ourselves that we are superstitious, or we consider this number 13 unlucky, but if this 13 number does not happen to us, we are a little happy about it, and this little happiness which we have inside us, we don't share it with others, and we refuse to admit even to ourselves that we are superstitious. But Gardiner says that this superstition is there. That it exists is evident from many irrefutable signs. Now, how to know that this superstition exists in society or in us? There are many signs that we can know that we are superstitious. There are numerous streets in London, and I dare say in other towns too, in which there is no house number 13. And I'm told that it is very rare that a bed in a hospital bears that number. So on purpose, this number is avoided. Though we boast that we are not superstitious, but if we see in towns, there is hardly any house that is number 13. And it is also told that hospital hardly bears a bed which has 13 number. The superstition, threadbare though it has worn, is still sufficiently real to enter into the calculations of a discreet landlord, is regard to the letting qualities of this house, into the calculations of a hospital as to the curative properties of the bed. He says that this superstition is not quite overt and not quite visible in society, but it is there even if it's just threadbare, because if there is a house number 13, it is going to affect the calculation in the mind of a landlord with regard to the letting qualities of his house, because people are not going to initiate to live in a house with number 13, and they are going to prefer a house with a different number if they have a choice. And also calculations of a hospital as to the curative properties of the bed. So if a hospital bed has number 13, the curative properties, people have it in their mind that this may not be able to cure a patient, and it's going to prove unlucky for a patient. So the beds in hospitals do not bear this number. In the latter case, general agreement would support the concession to the superstition. So in the latter case, that means when it comes to a hospital bed, a lot of people are going to support to the superstition that number 13 bed should not be there in hospitals. Idle though that superstition is, though the superstition does not have any base on anything, yet people follow the superstition because physical recovery is a matter of mind as well as of the body. And the slightest shadow on the mind may, in condition of low vitality, retard and even defeat recovery. Because it's considered that recovery, when a person is sick, it is not just that the body recovers, mind has a very important role to play as well as with the body. And if mind has a slightest shadow of any sort of a tension or any doubt, the condition of a patient is so weak that his recovery can be defeated or can be retarded. So people don't want this number 13, that any patient should have in his mind a doubt about the curative properties of the bed. So this is the reason why hospitals do not have bed with number 13, because recovery of a patient is not only physical but it's also mental, and just to keep mind away from such superstition and such doubt of this unlucky number, people support this superstition of a bed which should not be there in hospital with number 13. We are going to continue this essay in my next session.